Servus and welcome everyone to the Neco Community Conference in the third quarter of 2024. My name is always Flo, the founder of Neco, and today I'm gonna walk you through the last quarterly report, give you the latest updates, and at the end of the session we have a bit of questions and answers and a discussion around various ideas that have come up recently, and I would like to use this time to connect with the community and allow everyone to get the latest updates and ask questions. I will jump into the presentation right now if I can find it. Here we go. Good. Yeah, Community Conference 2024, third quarter. My quote for the day is "Storms make trees take deeper roots." That is what happens in nature. And that is what's also currently happening at Neco. The second quarter was a bit of a stormy quarter. And so what we are focusing now is to increase stability by growing deeper roots. So that second quarter had both sides. On one side, we made some progress, important progress. For example, in team building, we hired new staff, especially in the recruiting and HR department, but also in tech. We founded Neco Tech, our development company that is responsible for the development of the app, stack chain, and the operation of the platform. It was founded here in Tallinn, Estonia, where I am right now. And so currently we have 4 legal entities, and at this moment we can even think that this might be it for the legal setup. We have been considering reducing the complexity of our DAO and might be able to work with the current legal entities to get started without having to do more foundations in other parts of the world. What we've also done is the transition to a new treasury system. So we abandoned the reserve system, moved to a treasury system, which allows us to be more flexible, more efficient, and more secure on a long term. And in general, we had a positive performance in the market with a plus of 10% in the Neco price, while the rest of the crypto actually went down in the third quarter. It was something that was expected in the crypto market. We had this huge race in the first quarter with the Bitcoin halving in April, which led to then people speculating, okay, Bitcoin is really, really high, and afterwards selling. This was something that was expected, a very typical pattern. So in this regards, Neco performed against the trend. So we went up, crypto market went down. However, this additional 10% was something that also triggered some issues recently, because we had a declining treasury with no more revenue after closing our private sales last year. And then a 10% price increase while people kept selling Neco tokens and taking profits out, while we were hiring new people and sizing up the team, and thus taking additional operational and legal costs. So these influences together caused our treasury ratio, previously known as reserve rate, to decrease. And so the challenges we had were not just regarding the treasury ratio, but also the white paper. We started the collective writing of the white paper back in April, May. And then when we were almost done, we got an update from our legal team saying, well, the regulators are changing the rules. So in future, white papers have to be submitted in a machine-readable format, which makes it completely useless for humans to read. So it will be less effort for the regulators, but the entire community can no longer read white papers. And so we decided to put the white paper on hold and wait until a decision is made, which still hasn't happened, and work on a light paper. A light paper is a reduced version of the white paper, which also is easier to read, less pages, more infos and charts in a condensed format. So it might actually be beneficial to us, but that is still in progress. And then we were planning to start with a Series A in the second quarter. However, due to open legal questions regarding the DAO setup and the way that funding is possible now with the new MiCA regulation. So these questions, then simple issues like opening a bank account for a crypto company, you cannot imagine how long it takes. You know, it's been going on for months, and you still get questions and questions and questions. So it's quite a long process. Role vacancies, we were looking for a fundraiser or CSO in our organization to lead the fundraising effort. That we haven't been successful with that. And then obviously the unfinished light paper, because as long as we don't have the light paper, it really doesn't make much sense to reach out to impact investors. So this caused a delay in the funding. Accordingly, we didn't manage to raise treasury in the second quarter, and which caused the treasury ratio to go down by 5% due to the reasons I mentioned: price increase, members selling tokens more than ever before, and higher operational costs. So anyway, this situation is still good. You know, we have sufficient money in the treasury. We've built the system to be stable so that it can last long. And even in these cases where we have no revenue for a longer period, the operation is not jeopardized at all. Now I want to talk a bit about the treasury and the treasury ratio, because for a few people this might be new. We announced it already last year. We're going to change from the Neco reserve system to a treasury system. And the new term is treasury ratio. That replaced what was previously called the reserve rate. It's slightly different, but also right now it's pretty much the same. The treasury ratio is the ratio between the Neco treasury, that means all our funds and assets, in comparison to the Neco token supply. You know, and this is an indicator very similar to what we call the book to market ratio in stock listed company. So what's the actual value in the books of a company, and what's the value of the company on the stock market? And when you look at the most tech companies such as Tesla, Microsoft, Google, they all have like a ratio of a book to market ratio of 10%. So very similar to our treasury, or previously known as minimum reserve rate of 10%. So it's a very similar indicator. The Neco treasury, as I said, has replaced the Neco reserve, and it's storing the funds of our organization. It contains currently fiat, but in future we also plan to add crypto, real estate, and other assets. However, it's no longer a reserve, and it does not back up the Neco with fiat currency. That's a very important difference. And then we have the Neco Exchange, which is pretty much the same as it was before. The Neco Exchange just is responsible for converting Neco to fiat, as long as the treasury ratio is above 10%, for the purpose of providing liquidity and security in the system. Yeah, the other task that was a bit more challenging was the white paper. As mentioned before, we started the collaborative writing, then we had to change and work on the light paper, which is currently being finalized by our editors and will be published in August. We will have another session to review it with the community, so you can give us feedback, suggestions, and then after the review, we are going to release it and then hand it over to our lawyers so they can prepare for the fundraising. The people who have contributed to the white paper, some people ask, when will we get our rewards? You will get them once the light paper has been released, because there's another session where we'll invite our community to participate in the review. So please be patient. Everyone will get the rewards who contributed to our white paper or light paper. All right, what's next in this quarter? So as I mentioned, the collaborative review and the release of the white paper. So this is gonna happen in August. On the same side, we're working on a new logo. Some people might have noticed in our chat, we had some first examples. We are still refining them. It's not final. There's also the new slogan. So it will be people, planet, profit instead of, for the common good. And we're going to change a bit our style, colors. So there will be an update of our brand with the purpose of simplification. The next topic is Karma Points. I've been promising it for every quarter. Karma Points will be released, but not yet. The reason is that we still have some legal analysis going on in Germany, what we can do with regards to the nonprofit activities and laws, which it's highly complicated. Let me phrase it this way, and we're currently considering other options such as completely closing our nonprofit in Germany and working as a for-profit, because then we're no longer bound by the legal restrictions for the nonprofit laws in the various countries. And it might actually help us also on the cost side. Because right now the costs for the legal activities in the nonprofit sector are higher than all the donations we have received in the past. So it doesn't make much sense on a financial perspective. We will also be working on an updated business model and business plan for obviously our Series A funding. But also because of MiCA, the crypto regulation and the requirements of the regulator. So we're gonna consider a few more things, adding more revenue streams to the Neco model, which will also help us stabilize the system. So we're not just dependent on token sales, but we will add additional things like the freemium model, which we're gonna talk about later, and potential other sources of revenue to our business model. And quite important is the topic of complexity reduction. Actually, as a side note, complexity reduction was one of the topics, or was the thesis of my bachelor thesis, was the topic of my bachelor thesis. So quite an interesting topic. Simply spoken, we realized that, the setup of Neco and the DAO structure has shown to be highly complex and costly. So we're trying to condense it, remove things that are unnecessary, make things a little easier, even though, this might be like a bit of a change to our vision, but realizing that it's not always possible to follow just the ideal vision. We have to put in some practicality aspects, and especially now it's important to reduce the risk of this operation so that we can move forward with less complexity, less risks, and less cost. We plan to launch Series A funding as previously, with a goal of raising 5 million in the third quarter, probably around September, as we need July for the light paper, August for all the legal parts, and then in September we will start Series A funding. And in the meantime, we will prepare for the crypto license application, all the internal policies and processes and documentation that's required. Now that we have, clear guidelines and the Estonian parliament has passed MiCA and the implementation has begun, it is clear to us now what needs to be done, and we can start with the preparation. Roadmap unchanged. We are still in the build stage. Our goal is to raise 5 million. We haven't raised any things so far. We are planning to do our ICO in 2025. It's probably gonna be rather end of 2025 after the recent update from the regulators in terms of their time frames. We'll probably, the earliest we can start is beginning of 2025 to submit the application, and then it usually takes 9 to 12 months to go through the process, all the reviews, all the fit and proper tests by the regulators. So yeah, we expect the ICO to be rather at the end of 2025. Okay. Good. Are there any questions in the meantime here in the community? The next part is the quarter report from the last quarter. And then at the end, I will talk about the current financial situation and the strategy moving forward. As said, if you have any questions, please raise your hand and I'm happy to answer them. So as of July 1st, this is our dashboard, Neco price of €1.58, a price potential of 188. So looks good, but you could see here already the treasury ratio below 12%, so that's in the medium space. As a result, our organization started to implement cost-cutting measures. We've put in a hiring freeze, not to hire new people unless it's really, really required, to reduce the operational expenses. We also had to let go of some hires that we had because there was, just we're trying to cut the costs and avoid duplicate roles in our organization. So that was a bit of the negative. However, that once I made the announcement that the treasury is at less than 12%, within 1 week, a lot of people took out Neco tokens. So right now, since a few days, our treasury ratio is below 10%. And as a consequence, we have closed the Neco Exchange and suspended the exchange of Neco tokens temporarily. So right now, no one can take out more Neco tokens, except for organization. We need to be able to continue working, but members cannot. And this is in the interest of the entire community. This is the mechanism that prevents a panic. So this is what's currently in place. The token performance still looks pretty good. As mentioned, last quarter, we outperformed the market again. But what you see here, this is the trend without revenue and with people selling their tokens over the last quarter and taking profits. We've had about 5% decrease in our treasury ratio every quarter. That's why now we're under 10% for the very first time, actually, since we launched the private sales. But that's something that we can deal with. Market position still quite unique, that we have this high level of security. A profitability of around 50% right now. Over the last 12 months, you see the Bitcoin, Ethereum are still a little higher. That's from the run in the first quarter, but they've recently lost some of their value. So I don't think that the profitability of other cryptos will go up in this third quarter either, because it's quite high already. Here's the comparison: profitability, stability, security. Things are pretty much unchanged, and our market cap has reached the $7 million mark. If you look at the other currencies out there, fiat, gold, crypto, so these are their charts. You see there's still quite a difference between us and the rest of the market. So the last few months, there was more sideways in the crypto market. The stock market, Dow Jones Industrial, has been also moving sideways. Gold sideways, and the euro has gone down a little bit. When you look at company performance data, one thing that is clear is no more revenue in the third quarter. While we still have a very positive, big triple bottom line, this was the profit we generated. So this is part of the issue, guys. We generate a lot of profit while not having a lot of revenue. It was one of the decisions by Colexa that I would consider not the best. And I have to admit, it was also partially my fault, because I usually try not to influence the community by giving my opinion. But I should have probably clarified that at that point of time, it makes more sense to be a bit conservative with the price increase. And we had a very close race in the Colexa referendum between the Colexa option, which was a high price increase of 10%, which was the winner, and the reserve, which was the more conservative part. So a lot of the community already noticed, but unfortunately, we've chosen the higher one, which now is causing a bit more challenges. So this is the issue. In those situations, I think in future we have to be a bit more conservative. When there is no more revenue coming in, we cannot continue increasing prices as we did in the past. We reached our 500th active member in the community, so that limit is now reached to the max. Money supply and market cap increased again, and we're now over 7 million. Good. Any questions regarding the financial report? You can find it on our website if you want to read more details. This is just a summary. So,
Yes, I
yeah,
would like
guys.
to ask you, is it necessary to keep the private sales at 500, or could it be couldn't it be better if you allow selling to 1,000 or to 5,000, 10,000 or whatever?
Yeah. Yeah, we are considering that. Günther, good option. There's other reasons why we stopped it. Simply, we have reached the limit. There is one limit that Mika introduced, which is 150 investors from one country, and we have 148 from Germany. So we could add members from other countries. There's also our bank who says, no, we close your bank account if you continue raising funds. So there are legal things. The reason why we stopped is just we didn't want to run into any potential legal risks with getting the Mika license in the future, because the regulators in Estonia will also look at our German legal entity, which has been fundraising in the past. And so we didn't want to have any legal risks related to that. Yeah. So this is the reason why we stopped private sales. There is, we're currently in discussion with the legal team if there are options, there are options, and if it is worth taking the risk. But my preferred option is to raise funds to impact investor. That's the plan. However, there's also some legal issues with how that is possible. This we want to clarify and get at least the approval from the regulator here in Estonia. Very good question. Thank you, Günther. All right, let me go back to my presentation. Okay, I hope you guys are seeing my screen here. Quote, patience is a form of wisdom. It demonstrates that we understand the fact that sometimes things must unfold in their own time. I learned that over and over again in this project that has sometimes really challenged my patience. So with regards to the current financial situation, I want to just bring across this message. Guys, don't panic. Keep calm and hold your tokens. Yeah, this is the right strategy at that point of time. If you are involved with like sports like diving or paragliding, rule number one, if anything happens, the first thing is don't panic. Take your time and react after thinking a second about these things. So the reason why we have closed the exchange is that we want to prevent people taking out more of their Neco tokens, which would reduce the amount of treasury in our reserve and could potentially affect our plans of moving forward with the company. So this is our mechanism to provide the stability and security of the system and to prevent our investors from losing money. Right? So the purpose is to avoid a crash, to avoid a panic. Our current financial system, which is a fractional reserve system, has these issues. So when people panic and they take out money from banks, then the banks collapse and they have no protection against it. We do. We put this rule in place. So keep that in mind. It's designed for the security of the majority of our community who invested for a long term, who wants to see the project successful, and who's not interested in just, quick profit. As of July 11, which is today, our treasury ratio is at 9.85%. So it's in a low area, slightly below 10%, but it's still more than 600,000 euros. So enough money with our reduced cost now to get us through the entire year and into the next year easily. So it's nothing that we have to be too concerned about. There is enough in the treasury. However, as long as the treasury is below 10%, the exchange will be closed. In October, we could, as a community, decide to lower the price and reopen the treasury. And I will discuss this option later. But this is also an option. So the community can decide to lower the price, which will increase the treasury ratio, and then the exchange could reopen. Unfortunately, we also have some tax payments coming up this month and the next, so that's gonna hit the treasury as well, because the financial authorities do not care about a closed treasury and do not accept payments in Neco. So this is something that we expect in the third quarter. As mentioned before, we have implemented some stability measures, and we're now focusing on fundraising, which we plan to launch in September. Good. So now I'd like to open the discussion round with all the people here in the conference. And there's a few topics which I would like to discuss, but feel free to add your own topics if you have any. And yeah, I would like to open the round for everyone to provide feedback, to ask questions. And if there are no more, I'll go through these items here.
Ich hätte eine Frage. I have a question around the BRICS states and the money that is gold-based. How does that, what impact is there on our Neco currency? How do I have to think that the BRICS states are gonna build a currency that is gold-based? So we will have a big shift in the whole financial system. I can't think how that's gonna work, but I want to hear you how you see the situation. What's going to happen around with all the currencies we have?
That's a good question. So I have to admit, I'm not so familiar with gold-based currencies in BRIC. My personal thinking about gold, gold is a metal that is highly overrated. Because it's not as valuable as we think it is. We think it's valuable because it was, used to make coins in the past, but today it doesn't have so many, interesting features that we can use where it's nice and shiny. It's limited, yes, this is the idea, but just because something is limited doesn't make it highly valuable. So I would be a bit careful. And, gold is not a sustainable metal. The way it's being mined and all the problems gold has caused in the past, how many people have died because of it, how much nature has been destroyed. So I'm usually not a big fan of these kind of ways of backing up currencies. That's why we never included like metals in our program as a potential asset, because it's just not sustainable.
In this chess game on the world right now, this is the new, how do you say, die neue Dame. Also, we have to face that we will have a currency system in the BRIC states, which are about 40% of the world GPD, also Welt, was auch immer. Anyway, it's going to be a big thing, and America, China, and Russia, and Brazil, and India, they come together. Saudi Arabia come together to develop a currency that is going to be exchange the dollar. So it's a huge thing. So you know, but so we don't know what's gonna happen, and I just wanted to hear a little bit whether you have any idea, but I hear that you are no friend of these ideas and what's going on there. But I
No.
observe it very strictly.
Yes, and yeah, I would watch these trends with a grain of salt. In general, the idea of, you know, yeah, okay, digital euro and other central bank issued cryptocurrencies. I mean, this something will come here. I would not be too worried about, or I don't think that a gold-backed currency is something that can come back. You know, we got rid of the gold standard in the past, over 50 years ago, and there is not enough gold in the world to back up the money at all. Yeah. And it's already overvalued. I think all the gold in the world you can fit in a square of 20 times 20 times 20 meter in a cube.
Sure, sure, sure. But you know, we have right now with the fiat currency, we have a currency that's backed up with nothing, you know.
Yeah.
So it's a huge step to stability in the mind, you know. Everybody who thinks we're gonna go back in a backed up currency, that's gonna be a safe thing. So I think that's a good. It will be thrilling to see what's gonna happen. I don't know.
Yeah, we are in exciting times. It's hard to say where things are going. But right now, if you look at central bank issued tokens, they haven't really picked up. So when you look at the crypto markets, it's, you know, none of them have made it somewhere near, you know, the leading cryptocurrencies out there. So I have my doubts that they will be successful. And especially because people do not trust governments so much anymore. So, you know, we're rather thinking about something more global. But it's looking at a crystal, you know, it's like looking in a glass. So we will see what happens.
As you know, people are running along their mindsets and belief systems. So
Mhm.
I don't know, you know, the Neco is based on a good idea and a very rational systemic thinking, and this is not how the brain of the people works, you know.
Mhm.
So the question is how we how what is the Neco in this crazy world, you know? How do you transport the message that we are a stable copy of nachhaltige Systeme? I don't know how to transport that, you know.
Sustainable financial system.
Sustainable systems.
But that is what makes us different to the others, you know, a sustainable financial system.
How do you bring it into the brain of the people?
The topic of sustainability.
Why the topic that
People,
how
planet, profit, you know, sustainability. Sustainable, um, with a circular economy, with a collective control, not a central control, where where economy and ecology go hand in hand. Where not like in our current system, which is GDP oriented, which is growth oriented, which is one of the problems we are currently having. And this is why our system is not sustainable, because we measure GDP. You know, there's only one country in the world that stopped measuring GDP because we realized it's not a good indicator to measure. It's part of the problem. This is Bhutan, which introduced the gross national happiness,
I know.
right? So as long as we keep working in a system that still is focused on growth and the same old rules with debt and interest, we are not going to solve the problems. And if we continue believing that money is scarce and making it scarce through like things like metals behind it, we're also not going to solve the problem that we need a lot of money to fix the problems that we have created with the current system. You know, we have a lot of debt. We have the environmental debt. We need a lot of money to fix the problems. And these systems that are still based on the idea of scarcity will not be able to address the problem. As long as the system doesn't change from thinking from a growth-based linear system to a sustainable circular system, we're not going to be able to solve the problems that we have today.
Yeah, I know. Yes.
Okay. Günther, you have raised your hand.
Yeah. I have a couple of questions. Recently, I met Sweta and Ben Banerjee from Impact Investment Solution in Switzerland, and they are producing great impact stories for startups and publish these stories in their TV channels. So I think we need external support to tell the story as simple as possible. Another topic that what I wrote in the chat is, you may know I'm a member of the German Association for Impact Investing. I'm a member of Top Tier Impact. I'm a member of Catalyst 2030 and so on.
I know.
And I am using a couple of tools to check the investment readiness. And I sent you a link to use these tools because I avoid to support startups who are not investment ready for professional investors.
Yeah.
And this is very important. Otherwise, I would waste my time.
Yeah.
And recently, I met Parul Madan, who is a director of Quake Capital from Texas, US. And with her husband, she has about 8 funds. She's living in Cologne. And during the pandemic, she developed a software to manage their portfolio. It's called DueDash. And now I bring all my startups to DueDash in order to have a similar structure for all. And this makes it easier for investors to decide where to invest, when to invest, and design their own KPIs to follow their portfolio development. And I think it is helpful to use these kind of tools.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
I have very positive feedbacks from others.
Thank you for sharing. Günther. I've actually already clicked on it and I will check it out. Thanks.
Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions?
Yeah, hey, this is Jürgen speaking. Sorry, Flo, I keep the camera off as I'm currently traveling in the car. I think that's a fabulous suggestion, because this ties a little bit into my question. Key strategy now definitely is around attracting impact investors. So how should this be done? What's the strategy here? It needs to get, this whole mission needs to get more popular. It needs to be marketed more. So what's the strategy in leveraging connections like Günther just mentioned, or other people? What's the strategy really behind now attracting key investors to drive a market capitalization and more simply investors participating?
Yeah, I think you and Günther mentioned 2 important points. The first is getting investment ready. Yeah, which means light paper, soft agreement, bank accounts. It doesn't make sense to reach out before these things are clarified. And also the legal aspect, how to raise the funds, because it is a bit limiting right now without a license to raise funds for tokens. So these things have to be clarified to be investment ready, and to have the marketing setup plus business plan, a new business plan. That is something that investors want to see. We're also looking to hire a chief sales officer or a salesperson or fundraiser who can help us with that project, who already has an existing network, and we will reach out to others. That's why I also wanted to bring this into the community. If you guys know people or investors or networks like like Günther mentioned, then great. We already have a long list of potential investors, either crypto investors, impact investors. We just haven't reached out because we're not ready yet. And it doesn't make sense to reach out when you're, not at this point of time. That's why, we had discussion about logo, but logo is important because it's part of the rebranding that we are doing. The light paper, these are things, marketing material that we need to do. So this is our focus right now. Getting investment ready, hiring someone, at least one person who can support this process, because I don't have the full capacity. There's so many other things to do. You know, I'm limited in my time. Obviously, I will be involved, but I would like to have someone who's really focused and who has experience in fundraising an existing network. That, in my opinion, is the fastest way. And then there's many options. TTI, Top Tier Impact, is a network that I am in, Günther is in, and a few others. So these are also networks that we can leverage for impact investment, but also for team building. Does it answer your question?
Yeah, partly. So, I mean, there's currently a hiring freeze. So how will then the hire of a chief sales officer work? I mean, I have the feeling that this whole process now gets...
Well, I said hiring freeze. That doesn't mean that we are still hiring new people that are required, and the CSO would be such a person. Or a designer. You know, we just hired a new designer today. So for these roles, obviously, we make decisions, but no other roles which are not critical right now. Yeah.
Another question, you mentioned that people in Q2 sold token. What was it about? They wanted to realize their gains, or are they no longer behind the story?
Yeah, you know, I cannot tell all the reasons because, you know, some people need the money, some just, but I also feel like, you know, quite some people wanted to take out profit, which is okay, but this is not helping us as an organization, you know. So the idea of Neco is adoption, increasing adoption. So people buy Neco tokens and then use Neco tokens to pay, not to invest and then take the money out with profit, because that just reduces our treasury over time. And this is what happened. And so we had a high increase in the second quarter of the price with over 10%, which was unreasonable, in my opinion, and it would have been smarter to lower it. But, you know, this also attracts people. Okay, then like, okay, I see, I'll take the money. And then obviously the panic when they see the reserve rate going down, a couple of people like, oh, okay, let's take it out. And this is what happened. And so soon the minute I announced that our reserve is lower, like below 12%, within a week, the other 2% were taken out. So this is the situation right now. I have learned that, you know, in future we should make sure that we have, you know, not a longer phase with no revenue coming in, because that's just a negative sign. We always wanted to keep a little bit of an increase, but in that example, it is what happened. People have taken out profit, that has reduced. That was the main reason why the treasury went down. But now we, you know, made a cut. So the suspension of token exchange has led to the case that, okay, now no members can take out money, so it's stable. And I have a great example of one of our key investors who, you know, I informed that we might close the reserve in July. We expect that to happen. And he said to me, Flo, I'm not going to take out anything right now. I leave it in. It's okay. And when I announced that the reserve is closed, he said, well done. You know, and it is a positive thing here. It protects most of our investors. If we would not close the reserve, people would take out more just because of, you know, a panic reaction or like concerns or whatever. So this is the measure that creates stability. So now we have time to find, you know, the impact investors. We're not in a hurry because that's also, it takes time, and we have to be careful with the legal steps. If anything is done wrong, it might jeopardize our license, and that's, you know, the entire project. So I don't want to take any legal risks right now. This is the challenge. So rather taking time, being patient, moving forward. That is why I brought up this quote in chart, patience. You know, it's a form of wisdom to know there's no rush.
I'm sorry. Don't you think that the overall increase of the price of Neco is in some way in contradiction with the key idea behind? Because you cannot have such a huge increase of value without stepping into the same problems with our current systems. And another question is in terms of transparency, are there some insiders who know more than the others to sell?
No, not really. So one of the things, one of our values is, so let's start with this question first. So one of our values is equality. We treat everyone equal. We send the same information. Everyone gets the same information. There is one difference is our internal staff, we usually know like earlier because, this is something that is internally more transparent. So, but everyone else is treated the same. I do not inform anyone before the official communication. There's an official communication that goes out with the numbers, and then I can sometimes inform others, but not ahead. So to make sure we don't have these, information advantages. Okay. The other question you had was regarding. Sorry, Günther, you're muted.
I asked about the overall price increase. Isn't it too high?
Yes. I also agree. So that is what I mentioned. I was thinking of how to stabilize this model a bit more. I think in general, the amount of profit we have generated in the past is quite high. We've already started by introducing the maximum volatility limit of 5%, which also limits the maximum price increase per year to 80%, which is still quite a lot. In the future, I think for the referendums, the executive board who prepares the different options, we will be a bit more on the conservative side. Because I also feel like we have just generated too much profit, and that leads to just people taking our profit, and that is not the long-term goal. So I think, in general, like everything above 50% per year, in my opinion, is too much profit on the long term. However, the system allows it. The system, especially when we have when we start with the ICO, we'll see a huge increase in the treasury. So we could probably generate much more profit, but it is also, I agree with you, it is not sustainable. Also, it adds to the global problem of, even more money, more consumption. This is not really what we want. We want more sustainability. We need to have a better balance between profit and people and planet. Right now, it's a bit limited because, in our prototype, we have limited capacity with our climate partners. We could actually do more on that side, less profit and more for the planet. And I know many people would like that. So this is something we could change in the future. So definitely a bit of a better balance between profit and people, planet. Initially, most of the collector referendums were planet or sustainability. Recently, it has moved more towards profit, which I also agree. I feel we are on the top limit of profitability. A little less would be good, better. Okay, that is my opinion.
So what about
yes?
Yes. What about the idea to look into some external audits and obtain certifications?
Yes. Jürgen, we have planned that. So thank you for sharing. But this is part of the development. But we haven't started development. So, we are working on a prototype. The development hasn't started yet. For these roles in development, we need more funding because development is expensive. And yeah, there will be these crypto tools or these tools that test vulnerability. That's going to be an important step for obtaining the MiCA license because the regulators don't understand technology. So a certificate is the best thing to show to them, saying, this is certified. And there are various options out there. Thank you for sharing your link. Just right now, it's not the priority. Right now, the priority actually is the logo and the light paper and the other topics.
So sorry for not agreeing with this, that a logo should now be a priority, because you're talking about an ICO. So an ICO won't happen without any token, or I might misunderstand something totally. So an ICO without a token won't happen, right?
Yes, but we will not get to an ICO without funding. Yeah? And for funding, we need a light paper. And as part of that, we wanted to do a rebranding. Yeah, to have all the marketing material updated. That's why our priority was the logo. At this point of time, we haven't started development. We don't have sufficient reserves to build up the development team. So we cannot, there's no point of trying to get a technical certification or a T audit for a system that hasn't been developed.
But how can we then achieve in that short time frame in 2025 an ICO? If there is nothing technically available as of yet, no resources, no money, how do we want to envision an ICO next year?
Yeah, I mean, the development of an app takes 6 months. The development of stack chain, maybe 6 to 9 months. That means it's 2025. So it would work, plus some testing time. Huh? We said end of 2025, that's still 1.5 years we have for the development. Roughly.
But raising money can also take a long time, you know? And it's not enough to have a huge number of cold relations. I realize that even with dozens of partners, adding all their warm connections is not enough, because you also need a really perfect process to approach people via cold calling, but this is very expensive and it takes time. Or, for example, I have been to Kitzbühel for a whole week, and we had 2 topics in parallel. There were a crypto arm with a lot of experts from the crypto space. There has been an impact arm that was day 5, and a lot of impact investors from Japan to Canada and South Africa. And I think it is really helpful to know people like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I agree.
And yes, of course, I was a bit confused about the focus on logo. I think the logo is
the
fine.
focus right now is the light paper. You know, the light paper is a key to fundraising. Fundraising is the next activity.
Yeah, okay.
The focus, not development. I know it might sound strange to you, but this is what we need to do to move forward. Yeah, and
yeah, that's clear.
It's not that it's the only thing we do, but this is what we shared in our WhatsApp chat to get people to get a feedback what they would like to see. This is where the community can support. It's also to invite. Jürgen?
I think we are now in a situation where we need to focus how to expedite processes. And a logo discussion and logo creation, in my opinion, as an investor, is not the right focus area, given this situation. So we need to ensure that information gets out to the market in the way it's needed by the MiCA regulation. Point. Then we need to ensure attracting more investors, more money. Otherwise, no technical development, hence no kind of ICO/token will happen. All the money is then burned. I mean, let's bring it to the point.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't have a token, if we don't have an ICO, nothing will fly. So I want to understand what is now really the plan to expedite all these processes, because you're saying, okay, regulations is difficult, the new rules coming in, etc. pp. Understand, but I think there needs to be faster processes, faster moving forward, because we are not the only crypto token then on the market.
Mm-hmm.
What's the differentiation? Why should people buy Neco? So I mean, the competition is getting even harder.
Well, if you look at our performance, I think we're doing quite well in terms of competition, and in terms of our differentiation, we are very unique in the market, and it's our values that attract. I agree with you. I would like to move forward. However, as said, my experience, we did a lot of hiring in the first quarter, and it was actually growth was too fast, and now we had to go a step back and slow down, because the first priority is stability, to get the funding. This is my current priority, to raise the funding. And we are still looking for developers. It's not that we don't do these things, but it's not our first priority.
Well, I disagree with the sentence that we are doing good compared with competitors, because those on the list are not the competitors. The smallest one has a revenue of 1,000 times of Neco, the smallest one. The biggest one is out of discussion. But around the globe, there are thousands of new tokens issued every month. And I deal a lot with Africa. And in Africa, tokenization is going faster than in Europe or somewhere else. So I think we don't have an overview about the real competitors.
Well, I disagree with you on that, Günther, because we have a competitive database with the competitors in it, and we're comparing currencies. And so the top currencies that are around there, that people use today, are the ones we have on our list. Because the idea of Neco is to be a currency. There's other coins for various purposes. There's one for UBI, and there's coins for trees, but these are not payment tokens.
I know.
And that's why we have selected these ones. These are the biggest in the market and their performance. And this is how we compare. So we have a long list of other coins that do something similar or have similar approaches, but we look at the top performers in the market, because that's where eventually we also want to be in this space.
How about being protected against copying? Others who have a look to the design of Neco could copy and grow faster. What do you think about that? Especially if they are in some frontier and emerging markets where payments are 10 times lower than in our country?
Well, I think it's hard to copy Neco. We haven't seen anyone who does. What we have done to protect this, we have trademarks, Neco, Stack Chain, Colexa. We have a patent application in progress for Stack Chain. We have this idea for Colexa. We have very unique approaches to certain things that no one else has. Obviously, yes, there is the option that people could come up with things like, okay, collective price control, but no one has, right? And we have the advantage that what we've built together over the last 6 years almost has been proven in a prototype to be very successful. That is also one advantage that copycats don't have, right? A long history of proven success. We are one of the only currencies in the market that has never seen any loss. Our performance over the last 3 years is better than most of the other cryptocurrencies. The stability is great, similar to fiat. Our security is 100%. So I don't think it's, honestly, I don't mind. So if people copy us to do the same thing, they're not competitors, they're partners, because we are here for a mission to do something better in the world. And I'd rather collaborate with these other projects if they have similar vision and mission, to be together, because we can't just, compete against each other all the time. This is not the right way of solving these problems. We have to collaborate. So I wouldn't see them as competitors. I would see them as partners. And maybe I would even think of, joining forces with them and seeing what we can do together. This is also an option I see for Neco. Maybe there are others out there who have done and who are further in the team development, and we can work with them. Okay. So if there are no more questions, I have a few other topics I would like to discuss and bring up.
I still have one question. It might be a little bit in future times, but I have the question, if I accompany what my foundation does, we are creating fertile soil, and we try to buy this soil and to regenerate the soil, and we want to keep that soil. Several things will be done that the soil, in the context of regenerative agriculture, this is the context in which we move, and in some years, maybe 5 years or so, we will have our own land. We are responsible for the land, and we will keep it, and we will regenerate it. And I always think, because the fertile soil is the source of the primäre Wertschöpfung, Wertschöpfung, I don't know how to say.
Value creation.
So for me, this is the basis of any currency, having a soil that's fertile and that's growing. So my vision is that I will go into this direction, and in some years I will ask you, how can we cooperate? So is this a question of what you are thinking of? How could be the link between what Neco does and companies like me who are developing these ideas? Because I do not want to develop a humus coin, I don't know how to do it, but I know it's going to be a very precious tool where the people can understand what do we really want. We want to be at a point,
Tobias, we had this discussion at top-tier impact lunch or dinners in London and in Frankfurt. Both was about how to make nature an investable asset, because nature is the basis of everything.
Sure.
And there was a nice keynote speak from the founder, a female founder of the Land Banking Group. So probably you should contact her. She is on the same mission.
The Land Banking Group, so I find it with that.
Exactly. It's in Germany, even if the name is English.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And I believe totally, Tobias, like soil and soil regeneration is a key to solving the climate problem.
Well, we have lost 60% of fertile soil. We have a real problem on that.
Yeah. And with biochar and other things, we could sequester a lot of carbon from the atmosphere, put it into the soil, and create way more fertile soils. But this is, in my opinion, one of the keys to solving climate change is to work on soils. And how can Neco's support this? The idea is to use part of our budget for the planet to invest into the technologies, but also to support farmers and so on with these technologies, with biochar, to make it easier, to create an incentive to subsidize these things. So our community can decide, all right, we allocate a certain amount of Neco tokens for biochar. And we provide biochar, we fund biochar projects, and we fund, for example, partners who use biochar or your projects. This is the idea. So the community can decide where to put the money in. Because if we have the money, we have the resources. We have all these resources. We have the technologies to solve these problems. What's currently missing is the money. And this is the issue in our mind because we think that money is scarce, while money is a fictional resource which is available in absolute abundance. There's no reason why there's not enough money.
Sure.
Unless you have built a system which uses gold, which is scarce, so then there will be not enough money, right? And this is why,
gold you cannot eat, you know, that's
yeah,
that's a bad solution. In long-term thinking, it's a bad solution, you know.
Yeah.
So sorry, guys, I have to leave.
Günther, you muted yourself, but thank you for joining. Goodbye. See you next time. I would like to also, raise this topic of community sharing. So for our fundraising, guys, if you know people, if you know potential investors or links, let us know. We will reach out. That would be really beneficial. Then regarding the token, the suspension of token exchange, if someone really needs to get tokens, what you can always do is to exchange it to another member in the community. Like say, if I want to exchange 1,000 Neco for fiat, I can send it, for example, to Tobias, and Tobias can send me the amount in euros. This is something which is okay. It's outside of our reserve, but it's not that the reserve claims to have exclusive rights to do exchange. So this is a way how you can deal with the current situation. But the third way is just pay the people in Neco, if possible, if they're part of the system. Then Günther brought up this topic of profit and profit taking and the challenges we have. So one of the suggestions I have to make the system a bit more stable to prevent such a fast decrease in treasury is to increase our speculation period. Currently, the speculation period is 6 months. So if you buy and sell tokens within 6 months, you don't get any profit. You buy or sell for the same price you bought it. Which is which worked really well in preventing people from short-term speculation. However, in most of jurisdictions, the speculation period is 1 year. Like in Germany, speculation period is 1 year. After that, you don't pay taxes before you pay a speculation tax. So one of my ideas, and I would like to get your feedback, is to increase our speculation period to 12 months. And if anyone has any feedback on that, any suggestions or any opinion, please feel free. Yeah, so this is one way how we can prevent speculation. Another potential solution is to increase treasury ratio requirements. Currently, there's 10% minimum. Then for profit, there's 12%. For UBI, 15%. So these are percentages which are quite close to each other. We've seen like we could lose 2% in a week, like beginning of July. So the suggestion is that we increase these requirements. So the minimum reserve treasury requirement will remain at 10, but for profit, there will be 15, for UBI, maybe 20, to have a bit more stability in the system and to be a bit more conservative with our expenses and profit and universal basic income.
Du sprichst von einer Haltefrist, habe ich das richtig verstanden?
I am talking about the speculation period, which is eine Spekulationsfrist. When you buy and sell tokens in that period, you don't get the profit. So even if the token has gone up by 10 cents, we deduct it at the end, so you sell for the same price. This is currently the in place for a period of 6 months. Yeah, and we have seen people that buy and sell after 6 months exactly. Yeah, and this is taking profit out, so we could extend it to 12. Because the goal of Neco is people use the currency. That is how this is the idea. Driving adoption using currency, that increases the value. Speculation does the opposite. It takes out value over time. And increasing the speculation period to the same that most jurisdictions have for tax purposes is something that we could do. It would just mean that if you don't hold the token, I mean, Exactly. If you sell in 12 months, you don't get the profit. You cannot take profit out. However, if you pay in Neco, you have the advantage. If the token is increased in 10%, you need 10% less if you pay in Neco. But if you convert it back to fiat, you lose it.
Ja, was kann ich damit? So payments depend on token. Adoption depends on token. Token depends on development, technical resources. And I think in order to achieve fast adoption of Neco and acceptance, investments need to happen in the technical arena. So the token needs to be created as fast as possible.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to have the token. We have a token. Don't forget, we have a token, we have a prototype. So these things are already there. It's not existing. What we don't have is the app yet and the final system. Yeah. But even if we have that, we cannot grow without having the license. And the risk with the license is much higher than the technical risk with creating an app. An app is something that can be done easily, takes 6 months. The license takes 6 months preparation and another 9 months of an application process. That's the current thing. And the chances are still like there's higher risks on the way. Right? But
so at the end, we're talking, at the end, this might be in 2026 or even 2027.
It could also go into 2026. So currently, I would say end of 2025. We can't speed up. The Estonian legal regulatories, they're also they already signaled to some of the people that they're not going to start anything earlier than beginning of 2025. And I had a meeting with our lawyers yesterday who said this is the timeline. This is what the expected timeline is. There will be rounds of questions, and it's not as easy as it was before. They're taking a lot of time now in these processes. And these are external factors that we cannot speed up. We can put more effort into development, yes. But obtaining a license is something we cannot speed up. There we have to work with the authorities. And this is the most critical part. So in our risks, the legal risks and the regulatory risks are the key risks in this project. Not so much
these
the
are
risks, not so much the technical risks.
So these regulatory risks, but they are kind of determined by the European Committee, or who is exactly determining these?
So the MiCA regulation was passed by the European Parliament, but just has then to be adopted in every country, with every country making changes. So for example, Estonia added a requirement to have a supervisory board, which was just literally passed the parliament a few weeks ago. So still wasn't clear. The requirements for the white paper still aren't clear. We need to have a white paper, but they haven't defined the format of the white paper. So you see, these are things you can't speed it up because we need the white paper, but we started with the white paper and put some effort in, and then realized it was wasted time because the regulatory requirements would change. This is what I mean with patience. We can just burn the cash doing something and then realizing it's not going to work. That's why I say patience. I know, guys, I want to be out in the market. I've been hoping, to have the launch much earlier, the ICO, but we can only go with the speed that is sustainable.
So
and that's why I ask for your patience. In the meantime, we have the token, we have the system that you can use right now, and as and as long as these other things are not addressed, and as long as we don't have the developers on board, we cannot start with the development.
How do other crypto tokens deal with these regulations? Is this,
it depends on, So recently, as you might have heard, the MiCA regulation for stablecoins came into place. And it affected the market. Binance took a lot of stablecoins off, if you have seen the announcement. So A lot of other cryptocurrencies that have already had license now lose their license, and some will never get a license again. So again, it was not a good situation to be one of the first, because it's better to wait. And also good, strategy for us is to see what's happening with the first cryptocurrencies getting the licenses now. Because they haven't even started. They haven't even started processing applications. They will start processing in September. And Estonia already signalized they're not going to start in September. You have to wait until next year. And if you make a mistake, things can happen. And then see at Binance example, their CEO had to resign, or others collapse. So these are the risks I don't want to take. I'd rather go slow and stable step by step than rushing into a decision which could finally become fatal and kill the entire project. Good. Yeah. Another question I would like to bring up is the idea of karma. We recently, after discussions with our advisors in Germany, we had to remove rewarding carbon offsetting with karma tokens, because then it's not considered a donation, or volunteering with karma tokens, because then it's not considered volunteering if you give something in return. However, I noticed, so once we removed all these incentives to receive karma for these things, people stopped doing these things. So the incentive was gone. So we have two options now. We can follow the standard approach, which is having a nonprofit, and then you get, if you donate, for example, you pay your carbon free tax, we can give you a donation receipt, which you can use to deduct it from your tax filing. Or we could not use our nonprofit, but just give karma through our for-profit. You wouldn't get a tax, a donation receipt. You couldn't deduct it from your tax, but you would receive karma with all the advantages of karma. So I was wondering which option you guys would prefer. Is it more important for you to have a tax deductible donation receipt, or is karma the bigger incentive for donations or for carbon offsetting? Yeah. These are options. I might actually run a little survey into our community later to see what people feel. But there are options here that we could actually go back to the initial karma system by just completely skipping the non-profit activities and do it under the for-profit, where we have no legal limitations. All right. Yeah, another source of revenue that we are currently thinking of is a freemium model. So there will be the basic version of Neco will be free, like with most neobanks like Revolut and N26. And then there will be a premium version, which has additional features, maybe additional limits, that is paid, which will be another source of revenue for the organization. And I wanted to hear your opinion on that, or maybe ideas what you would be willing to pay for in terms of a premium subscription model, and what the premium subscription price could be. Not so many feedbacks. Okay, right. Well, this is one of the models that we are looking at. And if anyone has feedback, I would appreciate that. All right. With that said, if there are no more questions in the community, I would like to close this community conference. I would like to thank everyone for attending. Again, thank you for your thoughts and suggestions. They're always appreciated. My reminder, don't panic, stay calm, and be patient. We're moving forward. It's not as fast as I would like to have it, but more important than speed is stable and secure. With that said, I wish you all a good day and a good rest of the week. And see you in this community again very soon.